Today I'm going to be talking about a BTS, a behind the scenes of the wedding reception, how I photograph it, and also how I do a same-day sneak peek. So stay tuned. Welcome to I'll Be There For You, a podcast for couples to help them with their wedding photography planning. With me, William, of William Adwin Photography. I've been a wedding and portrait photographer for well over a decade, and I've had the honor of photographing several hundred weddings throughout the years. Helping my couples have a great experience has always been my priority, and that's why I started this podcast. So thank you for stopping by. Make sure to follow, and I hope you enjoy. Okay, welcome once again. And today I'm going to be talking about some behind the scenes on the wedding day. And I'm specifically going to be focused on the wedding reception and everything that's involved with it, and just kind of share my approach, my philosophy to the different parts of the reception. And part of the reception and what I do is I do a same-day sneak peek, which could be in the form of a slideshow or could be in the form of a link delivered to the couple. And I'll go into that a little bit more. So moving right along, I'm going to be going over the who, what, when, why, and where, and how of the different parts of the reception. So let's start with the who. Who am I focused on and who am I photographing? Well, really, I'm photographing everyone, and I really want every couple to have at least a picture of all of their guests at some points. And there's a variety of different ways to do that. And I will say that, of course, I'm prioritizing the couple, the family, and the wedding party, and most of the pictures will be about them. But even if you're the 150th guest or the 250th guest, and most of my weddings aren't more than around 150, but I have had some weddings that are 300 people or so. And one way that I can incorporate at least a picture of everyone is to do what is called table shots. And some photographers will roll their eyes about table shots. However, I always ask the couple if this is something that they're interested in. If a couple is not interested in it, then I won't photograph it. However, more recently I've thought, as long as it's not intruding on anyone and as long as the couple is okay with it, and if I explain to them, if I do the table shots, which don't take too long, and I won't do them during any other events during the reception, you might change your mind later as to if you want to have at least a picture of that 150th guest, whoever it might be. So table shots can be done with the couple going around to the tables, or it can just be the people at the table. And this is not a large production, and it's very quick. And I simply go around to the tables when people are seated, and I just say, a quick picture for the couple, and they just kind of lean in. Oftentimes people will come with a guest or they'll come with a partner, and they'll just kind of lean into each other, and I'll take a picture. And it's as simple as that. No one has to get up or go anywhere. It really doesn't intrude. It's literally, a second or two. But then the couple has at least a picture of all of their guests. And of course, as I mentioned before, most of the focus, though, is on the couple, the family, and the wedding party, because they're more involved, and there are specific portraits of them earlier in the day, and then they are also involved in some of the events at the reception. So the who is what I just explained. All of the guests, but again, I'm prioritizing and spending more time on certain people than other, but it's nice to have at least something of everyone at your event. And speaking of The Who, it's really important for me to, and not the band The Who, however, shout out to The Who, but it's important for me to know the VIPs. That's a very important part of The Who at the reception, and specifically, where are they? Where are they going to be? Because when I'm photographing the first dance, for example, I don't ever want to get tunnel vision of just photographing that dance. There are people watching that dance, and there are parents watching that dance, and siblings, and of course the other guests. So I will always, as the lead photographer, I'll always be photographing what I call the main show. And the main show is your dances and speeches and toasts and any cultural events during the reception. However, I will also photograph crowd responses. And my second photographer's sole job at the reception is to just focus on crowd responses, because I want the entire story to be told. So when the couple is dancing, I want a picture of that. And then as the couple or family and friends are looking through their wedding gallery, I want them to be able to look at the next picture and then maybe see dad watching his daughter dance with their partner, and that could be a really beautiful moment and a beautiful image to have. So I don't want to get, again, tunnel vision and just photograph the couple dancing and not really have the entire story to tell. So that's how I approach the first dance. Now, it's also how I approach parent dances, and really any event that's happening, the parent dances, speeches, toasts, the hora, dollar dance, any cultural events, cake cutting, and even dance party. The couple or whoever's dancing, there are oftentimes people responding to those other people dancing, like looking at their dance moves, and there's always someone that is really impressing other people with their dance moves. So I want to tell the whole story, so that's an important part of the behind the scenes. I'm not just telling one point of view. I want to show multiple points of view. Now, I do like to say for the introduction of the wedding party and family, and of course the couple, at the beginning of the reception, this is done in different ways, and there's not a right or wrong to your wedding. Whatever works for you is really the right way for you. So sometimes the introduction is a pretty significant event, and there's music playing, and lots of people are cheering, and there's very definitive announcements of people's names. The band leader or the DJ, whoever is making these announcements, is specifically saying, here's the couple, here's the wedding party, here's the parents. That's what some people do. Other people abbreviate it, and maybe just the couple is introduced. And then some people, there's not even really an official introduction. The reception just kind of organically starts after the cocktail hour. So really, whatever works for you, it works for me from a photographic standpoint. But I will say, if there is some kind of official announcement, I am photographing, for example, the couple coming in, there's music playing, people are cheering. So I also want to get their family and friends cheering them on and being there for them to, again, tell the entire story. And the dances, first dance, parent dance, any kind of dance, I will say, I like to share this perspective. I never tell people what they have to do, but I do like to share perspective. One thing I've noticed over the years is if a couple is having their dance, if someone is dancing with their son or daughter or mother or father in a parent dance, if you're talking to that person the entire time, it doesn't always translate well to photography, because photography is a still image and it freezes you talking. It freezes your mouth moving. And while it depends on how fast you're talking, if there's pauses in between, but sometimes, and I think it could be because people are nervous, they tend to talk and they think, I don't know if I'm supposed to just be in this moment. Maybe I should just start having a conversation with whoever I'm talking to. I'm here to tell you that you can just be in that moment. You can just hold your partner. You can look around. You can watch your family and friends, there for you to support you. Appreciate the song that you're dancing to, because of course that song has meaning to you and you've chosen it. You don't have to talk. And again, it could negatively affect the pictures. It could look like you're having a conversation in the middle of the dance floor as compared to having a dance together. And this holds true both for photo and video. So in video, of course, you're going to see people talking. So something to keep in mind. Just appreciate that moment with your partner. Appreciate that moment with your mother, father, son, or daughter, if it's a parent dance, and just be in that moment. And if you know yourself and you're like, you know what, I'm going to get nervous being in front of everyone, you don't have to have a dance for any designated period of time either. It doesn't have to be the full 3 minutes of the song or however long the song is. There are plenty of people that will do 30 seconds, just enough to have that moment, to have people watch and to have some photo and video captured of that event. So that might make it a little bit easier on you. And I just wanted to share that you don't have to have the entire song playing. Moving on to speeches and toasts. One thing I like to think about and share with people, if you're a maid of honor, if you're a best man, looking at your phone to give a speech is not the best thing to do in terms of translating to photograph or translating to video. Excuse me, just taking a sip of tea. I didn't know how dry your voice gets if you just keep speaking. And I'm only 10 minutes in and my voice is already getting kind of dry. So always good to have some water or tea, coffee, or whatever works for you if you're recording a podcast. But back to speeches and toasts. I would recommend that you don't look at your phone, because when someone's looking at their phone, it reads as someone scrolling through social media or something like that. And it doesn't feel as meaningful. And not that this is anyone's intention, of course. We're just so used to being on our phones. But what I can tell you is that with a Google search or on Amazon, they sell these books that you can put your phone into. So you could still have your speech, your toast on your phone, but you can actually have it kind of wrapped in this book. And the books come in different styles and colors, and you could have a very sleek, modern-looking book. You could have something that looks more kind of historic, like an old novel, and it just reads nicer. It doesn't become a distraction. And a distraction, whether it's a small distraction or a big distraction, takes people out of a moment. So whether they're actually experiencing that moment or if they're looking at a photograph to kind of relive that moment, you want to get rid of any distractions if at all possible. And if you're not able to get one of these books or something like that, simply a piece of paper actually goes a long way. And try not to have the piece of paper folded up in 25 folds and have it in your back pocket all day and you're sitting on it. Give your speech to the planner or give your speech to the venue and just ask if they can print it out. And so when I say give it to them, you can give them the file, give them the Word document or whatever it is, printed, written on, and just ask the venue or the planner if they can print it and then have it at your seat at the reception. And then that is a convenience. And it just reads better for pictures. So moving on to some other events, you have perhaps hora, the circle dance, dollar dance, cultural events. My approach is when there's a lot of people on the dance floor for a lot of these events, I am getting right into the moments. I am there's kind of an art to gently nudging your shoulders in between people, and if they kind of turn around, they're like, there's like, who is this? Yeah, I just show them the camera, of course, and they realize that I'm the photographer and I need to kind of maybe scoot past some people and get really up close to the events that are happening, because I don't want to photograph these events from really far away with a zoom lens or something like that, because it just doesn't feel as intimate. It doesn't feel like you're within the moment. So I will get right in there, and my second photographer will also get in there as well. And again, the same approach to like the first dance and parent dances. I'm focusing on the main show. So if a couple is being lifted up on chairs and it's the hora dance, I'm focusing on that. And my second photographer is focusing on that as well to a certain degree, but mostly focused on the people cheering and dancing around the couple. Because again, I want to tell as much of a story as possible. And cake cutting is a similar thing. I will photograph the cake cutting most of the time. And sometimes my second photographer will photograph the cake cutting while I'm working on the same day sneak peek. And I'm going to get into that a little bit later. But it depends on the circumstance. But cake cutting more often now isn't as much of an announced event. if it happens, and I'm sharing from the perspective of the Northeast of the United States. It's 2024, so at least in this area, this general market, the cake cutting is not really announced anymore. It's something kind of quiet that the couple does, if they even cut the cake. And so there isn't a lot of crowd responses necessarily, unless people just happen to be close to the cake. So 2 photographers isn't as needed usually as compared to other events that are more announced and there's a actual focus from the guests. And the garter and bouquet, that's something that I can't even remember the last time I've seen. It is something that was popular. It was something that was popular, I should say, but it really isn't that popular anymore, at least in the market that I'm working in. But when that was popular, again, the same kind of thing. I would be photographing the main event. My second photographer would be photographing crowd responses, or I'd say or with something like the bouquet toss, I might photograph the bride tossing the bouquet, and my second photographer will focus on someone catching it. I'll kind of do both as well, and I get my cardio in doing that. But it's again important to tell the story from multiple points of view, but it's just not something that happens as much right now. And then a send-off could be an event at the reception, and it's of course the last event at the reception because it is the send-off. And then couple and their family and friends and any guests that are still there might go to an after party, but I don't usually photograph the after party, although sometimes I do a little bit. But for the send-off, there's not so much crowd responses in a way where I can't photograph everything on my own, because it's a very uniform kind of send-off, and people will line up on both sides, and people will have sparklers, or they'll have bubbles, or they'll have confetti, whatever the case might be. But everyone's kind of lined up to some degree in a fairly uniform way. If you hear a dog barking, that's a dog down the hall from my apartment. So special guest. But the send-off is a fairly uniform event. So I can take pictures of the couple walking down the aisle, essentially, that their guests are forming, and they're holding the sparklers or the bubbles, and it's very celebratory. So there's not so much of a crowd response for my second photographer to photograph in this circumstance, because the crowd is kind of in the picture to begin with. And it's something that I can photograph from one point of view in the center, and kind of in the center of the aisle, and I could shoot wider and I can shoot tighter, but I can get everyone involved in that. And usually what my second photographer will do is hold whatever light source I'm using, whether it's a continuous light or flash, and my second photographer will hold that and move around as directed if necessary. So that's a circumstance where I would use the second photographer, which also makes me think, my second photographers I call them second photographer / assistants. And a second photographer, of course, is someone else that's taking pictures from a different point of view. However, at points of the day, they're also an assistant. An assistant, for me, when I define it, is someone that's not taking pictures, but they are assisting with lighting, with gear, or simply the couple might need a glass of water, or sometimes, of course, we bring snacks. And if someone is, feeling a little hangry or whatever the case might be, it's nice just to have an extra set of helping hands to go grab something. I'm really all about the experience, and I want my couples to be hydrated and to have a little snack if they need, throughout the day. So that's what having that second photographer / assistant is for. And I will say, in certain situations, like if I'm photographing in a city, I will have a second photographer and an assistant. And the reason for that is, I don't even know if I'd call the assistant an assistant. It's more like a security guard, because if we are carrying gear throughout the city, of course, I'm focused on photographing the couple. My second photographer might hold a light source to create a certain look if I'm not using natural light. However, I will also use natural light as well. And in that circumstance, my second photographer might take pictures from a different point of view. But it's important for there to be someone whose job is to solely watch the gear, because of course expensive photography gear could grow a pair of legs and walk away in the city. So depending on where I'm shooting is whether I'll have a second shooter / assistant or a second shooter and an assistant. And again, it's just good to have an extra set of helping hands, and it makes the experience better for everyone. So back to the reception. Again, I'm kind of going through the who, what, when, why, where, and how. So we talked about the what. We talked about the different events. Let's talk about the when. And the when is really pretty simple. The actual time that you're having these events at your reception doesn't really matter to me. And sometimes I'll get a timeline from the couple, and it's completely great that they share that with me. But if the intros are at a specific time and the first dance is at a specific time, and then the parent dance is at 7:25, it doesn't matter to me, because I'm set up, I'm there, I'm ready to go, and I'm familiarized myself with what events are happening. I'm certainly not going anywhere. Everything is happening in that one reception space, so I am prepared and ready for any events that are going to happen. The only thing to keep in mind is if the amount of coverage that I'm hired for is covering the time that these events are happening. So if I'm hired for 10 hours and I am there until, let's just say I'm there from noon to 10 p.m. If I am there till 10 p.m. and the couple has not had their send-off yet, and maybe the send-off is at 10:30 or later, then of course that would be an issue, and I wouldn't be able to photograph it. But that's something that we talk about beforehand. Do you want the send-off photographed? If so, we're going to adjust the amount of coverage that I'm here. But I always communicate to my couples, with the amount of time that I'm here, any events that are important to you, you just want to put within that designated period of time. And it's really as simple as that. So that's the when of the reception. The why. Well, that's also pretty simple. The why of your events at your reception and everything you're doing is because it's important to you. And I kind of touched on this earlier. I don't want any couples to ever feel like there's a formula that they have to follow. If you've been a guest at a wedding and you're like, well, this person did this or they didn't do that, that's fine, but I really want to share with you, and I have the perspective of hundreds of weddings. I've had couples do a variety of different things. I've had couples omit things. I've had couples include things that I haven't seen before. And some people get really creative too. Recently, I had a couple hire an undercover magician to be at their cocktail hour, which was just really fun. Of course, they told me about it because this isn't something I would normally know about, and this is why I ask questions during preliminary consultations and share your vision with me and tell me anything that you want to tell me and anything that might be a little bit different. And this couple was like, we're going to have an undercover magician, and they pointed him out to me, and of course, I didn't tell anyone who he was. And I just kept an eye on him, and he just would walk up to guests at the cocktail hour and introduce himself. And he just kind of had this fictional story. He was just like, "Oh yeah, I went to college with the couple, or I knew them from way back when, and I'm just flying solo today. Do you guys mind if I just kind of hang out and be involved in your conversation?" And of course, people are like, "Oh yeah, sure." And then he just kind of slowly eases into, "Oh, can you hold this for me? And by the way, I have your watch," and, doing whatever kind of tricks he did. It was really fun. So you can do that. People have live painters at their reception. And really make it your own. What's important to you? And if something has never been done before, do it. There was a time when there was never a magician at a cocktail hour, but now, people have done that. And you can omit things if you want. The garter and bouquet, as I mentioned earlier, that used to be at every single wedding I photographed. I never see it anymore. So you don't have to have it. But I'll tell you what, if you do want to have it and no one else is doing it, you should still do it. So I can't emphasize that enough. This is your day. There's not a right or wrong way to do it, and just make it about you. Do research, have some perspective, ask people, and then ultimately do what works for you. So moving on to the where. So again, we're doing the who, what, when, why, where, and how of the reception. So the where is the dancers should be on the dance floor, of course, so your guests can see, and photo and video can move around. Mobility is incredibly important for photo and video. Now, there have been some circumstances where, like a very casual reception, there's not really a designated dance floor. And this is okay, but it's just, of course, information that I always get before the wedding day and that you want to communicate to your vendors. But if you're not having an official dance floor and the events aren't on the dance floor, and you're going to do something very casually off to the side, maybe have just a little dance with your significant other, you don't have to even have it announced, but if you want it photographed, if you want video of it, just make sure that you communicate that with your vendors, with your photo and video team. With that said, most of the time there is a dance floor, so it's essentially the stage for whatever events are happening, and you want to make sure that these events are, on the dance floor. And when you're dancing with your partner, with your parents or son or daughter. Another thing I wanted to mention that I didn't mention earlier is you're allowed to move. And again, I think this comes back to sometimes people will get nervous and sometimes they just stand there and they rock back and forth and they don't rotate at all. And for photo's sake, it's not as much of an issue because, of course, I can move myself and shoot from different points of view. And then it kind of looks like you're rotating and you're getting different backgrounds. However, some venues have more pleasing backgrounds from one direction than the other. And if you're not rotating and the only background that there is maybe the not most attractive background, or it's the band or the DJ, and nothing against them, but it's nice to have a background of your family and friends watching you rather than having, maybe the DJ and the speakers or the band and all that. So it's okay to move. It's okay to rotate when you're dancing and just keep that in mind. And again, if you feel nervous, you can make it 30 seconds. You can make it a short little dance and it'll still be meaningful and something that could be captured with photo and video. But more so with video, if you're not rotating, then video might be rotating and it might not be their style to do these 360 kind of, shots. And so just make sure to move around, make sure to rotate and really just take in the moment. So moving on to the where, the location for speeches and toasts. And I would define the difference between a speech and toast, although it could be a bit ambiguous. A toast is kind of could be very short, and sometimes someone impromptu will just kind of stand up and say, "Hey, just wanted to say congrats and love you guys, cheers." That's a toast. That's very short. That's not so formal. They don't have to go to a designated spot for that necessarily, and oftentimes that isn't even mic'd up. They're just kind of, giving a cheers to someone. But a speech, I would say, is more formal, not necessarily formal, but designated and something that is announced and something that is mic'd up, etc. What I recommend for the location for speeches is that it's important for the person that's giving the speech and the person that they're giving the speech to be, relatively speaking, closer together. If there's too much negative space between the person that's giving the speech and the couple that is listening to the speech, all of that negative space can create this void, which kind of takes away from like an emotional connection and storytelling standpoint through a photo or video. So sometimes I'll see a person giving a speech and they're standing in the center of the dance floor and the couple is 20 feet away. And my recommendation would be to not do this because of that void, because of that disconnect. If the person giving the speech, for example, the maid of honor, if they're standing near the couple, whether it's at the sweetheart table or if they're sitting at a table with the rest of the guests, and sometimes what people will do is they'll bring chairs out to the edge of the dance floor just so there's visibility and some room for the person to speak, to be there. And then they're not quite as far away from the person that they're giving the speech for. Now, logistics, of course, are involved, and it doesn't always happen this way, or it's not always this simplistic, but that's why I wanted to mention that. So, for example, if a couple is sitting at a table, a long table, and there's a lot of decor, and it might not work for photography's sake or video's sake for someone to be giving a speech near them because you can't see the couple necessarily. That's why I'd mention it's okay to also move. The couple can sit somewhere else or move to listen to these speeches. And sometimes the couple will also stand near the person that's standing and giving the speech. But the most important thing is that, again, there isn't that expanse and that void between the person speaking and the person that's listening. And it just makes for better pictures and better video. Moving on, I think that's everything I have to say about the where. Again, all of the other events, the hora, dollar dance, circle dance, any kind of cultural events, these usually happen on the dance floor because there's space for it. There's not tables and chairs, of course, unless there's the hora, and those chairs are being used for good reason. But most of the events are happening on the dance floor because, again, essentially that's the stage, and for good reason. The send-off is something that is usually outside. Now, of course, if people are using sparklers, you have to do it outside. However, sometimes if it's very cold, if it's in the middle of the winter, couples might have a send-off inside of their venue, and they might set off indoor sparkler machines that aren't really sparklers, and there's no heat to them, and it's safe to have. Or maybe confetti or balloons or bubbles, something like that is safe to use inside. Sometimes people will do that if the weather isn't that great at that time of the year. So you could still have a send-off if you're getting married in the dead of winter. Don't worry, your guests don't have to freeze, and you can kind of do that inside. And you could do it on the dance floor, and your guests can line up on both sides, and you can walk through them and just have this kind of celebratory end to your reception. And then some couples will kind of go to a final dance, and the entire congregation kind of circles around them, and that can make for a really nice kind of closing to your reception. But if the weather's not so bad and you could go outside, most send-offs are outside, again, especially if there's pyrotechnics involved. So you obviously want to have that outside. And then moving on to the how, who, what, when, why, where, and how. How do I approach photographing all these different events? Well, I don't like to shoot really, really close to people. I don't want to stand 2 feet away from someone when they're having their first dance. I don't want to be on the dance floor. I feel like, again, it's their stage. Same with parent dances. I don't want to be on the dance floor. So now this is different than something like the hora or the dance party when people are. I don't really have a choice but to get on the dance floor. I could shoot from far away, from higher up, and zoom in, but it doesn't feel like you're in that moment. But that moment of the hora is a different kind of moment than a first dance or a parent dance. I feel that a parent dance and a first dance is a little bit more of a private moment, and I don't want to be standing 2 feet away from people. So I will be standing farther back. I will use a variety of different lenses that allow me to shoot wide and get the entire space, but I can also zoom in and get closer up on the moments and any emotions that are unfolding. The same holds true for speeches. I'm not going to stand 2 feet away from the best man when he's giving a speech. He's probably nervous enough, so there's no reason for a camera to be right up in his face. I will be farther back. I might be on the dance floor a little bit for this, but it's the other end of the dance floor, and again, I'm zooming in or shooting wide to show the entire space, but I never want to intrude and kind of be right on top of people because I want them to forget that the camera is there, quite honestly, and I want them to be in the moment. So I'm just not going to be right up against them with a wide angle lens and just kind of intruding on their space. In terms of lighting, I I will use a variety of different kinds of lights. Now, it depends on the venue. Some venues will have really great existing lights. They will have spotlights, continuous lights that are set up in the venue, and these lights can even move. I mean, it's no different than a theater production. They have lights throughout the venue. These lights can be controlled and move around as the couple is having their dance or as someone is giving a speech. So if that is the case and the light is good, I will use that available light, and there's no reason for me not to. Some venues do not have that, so what I will do is create the same kind of light with flash or continuous light. However, I usually use flash because I have more control of the ambiance. The continuous lights are only so bright. However, there are some continuous lights that are tremendously bright, but then I feel that they become kind of too intrusive and take away from the ambiance of the reception space. So with flash, I can control how much light I'm putting on my subject for a dance, for a speech, whatever the case might be, and I can very much control it and finesse it and keep the overall ambiance of the space. And I have more control with that than continuous lights. So it really depends on the circumstance of the venue, and if the venue has existing lighting or not, and if it's in the right place and if it looks good. Otherwise, I will use my own lights. But this is why I always bring light. I never know if I'm going to use the available light or if I'm going to use my supplemental lighting. I always want to be prepared for any circumstance that I'm in. And I've already been at a venue where the venue had existing light and they had a beautiful spotlight. Unfortunately, and no fault of the couple started dancing outside of the spotlight, and the spotlight couldn't be moved for whatever reason. So that was a circumstance where I started photographing the couple. They were in the spotlight. They moved out of the spotlight, and they were just in the moment, which was perfect. And they weren't paying attention on, and nor should they, pay attention to standing within the spotlight. So as they left the spotlight, I used a light that had a grid on it, and a grid is something that controls the beam of light so it's more spot, so it's not going to spill light everywhere and affect the ambiance. And so I just used my flash, my supplemental lighting, and I wasn't going to interrupt them during their dance, and they were able to continue to have their dance, and still I was able to create good light for them. Okay, I'm going to take a break and take a sip of tea. Okay, that was a short break, and we're back. And now I want to talk about the same-day sneak peek that I do. And I'll go through the who, what, when, why, and wheres of that as well. So who is in the sneak peek? The sneak peek, and I will say, it's usually about like 60 images or so, and it is an abbreviated story of the entire wedding day, from the getting ready pictures to the reception events. And I don't start working on the same day slideshow until the events are done. So now it might not include the cake cutting, but sometimes it does, depending on the timeline. But the intros, the first dance, parent dances, speeches, and toasts, all of those will be included, at least a picture or two, in the sneak peek. So that's when I'll start it. But back to the who, the people that are in this sneak peek, of course, I'm prioritizing the couple, the wedding party, and the family. In a sneak peek, there wouldn't as likely be, the 150th guest that was invited. Nothing personal against the 150th guest, but this is an abbreviated story, so I really want to show the VIPs. So that's the who of who's in the sneak peek. The what is, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a sneak peek. It's pictures of the wedding day on the wedding day. And, we live in a time of, smartphones and instant gratification. You take a picture, you have it already. People, even if it's not a great picture, people want that picture, that blurry picture they took on their phone of the low lit reception space of the couple dancing, just because they can. And so, it's important for me to adjust my business as the market, or I'd say just people in general, are changing. People are just used to having something very quick. So I want to do that for them. So moving on to the actually continuation of the what. I will say that it's 95% of the time my couples do want to have this at their reception. And now this does not stop the music. This does not stop the party. It depends on the circumstance. But the way the slideshow, it's a slideshow. The way the sneak peek slideshow is shown is, for example, some venues have monitors set up throughout the venue. So I will just plug in my laptop. And by the way, I bring my laptop. I will take the memory cards out of my cameras, and I'll go through and I'll do a quick cull. And culling is just quickly going through and grabbing the pictures that I'm going to have in the sneak peek. And I will just sit off to the side or up on the balcony away from everyone else and work on my laptop. Simultaneously, my second photographer is taking pictures of the dance party. And there's lots of dance party going on, so they can handle that on their own. And really, this is just a smart use of my time. So if the venue has monitors, I will plug in to the monitor system. However, sometimes a venue will not have a monitor, and I'll bring a projector and a screen and set up the slideshow off to the side, in a corner, in a balcony, in another room, in a non-intrusive way. Again, so it doesn't take away from the party, the music doesn't stop, and people, and the slideshow just plays on a loop, and people can just watch it at their leisure. Now, I will say that 95% of my couples do opt to have a sneak peek, and I should say sneak peek slideshow on their wedding day. However, some couples, and I respect this, choose to not see the pictures until after their wedding. Whatever works for them works for me, but know that I always discuss this with the couple, and it is only done with the couple's permission first. But again, 95% of my couples, they get so excited about this, and their family and their friends see the pictures at the reception with them, and it just becomes a really beautiful moment for them to relive the wedding even before the wedding is over, and just look back on the getting ready pictures and the ceremony and any moments there might have been. So it really is special for 95% of my couples. Now, for the other 5%, what I do is I'll still work on the sneak peek, because again, this is an effective use of my time. This goes to the why. Who, what, when, why. Why am I doing this? Because when I first started shooting weddings, I found myself and my second photographer, we would both be taking pictures of people dancing to Bon Jovi and on the dance floor, and it just wasn't a smart use of my time, because there are so many moments happening on the dance floor that it doesn't take a very long time to get a lot of dance party pictures. So to have two photographers photographing dance party, sometimes for hours, I mean, the couple would end up getting more dance party pictures than anything else from their wedding day. And that's just not what any of my couples would ever want. And, of course they want dance party pictures, but for it to basically be mostly a day about dance party, that's just not something that any of my couples would ever want. There are other parts of the wedding day too that are very important. So why not use my time wisely and work smart? And so this is why I do that. My second photographer can continue shooting dance party, and then I work on the slideshow. And back to the 5% of couples that might not want the pictures, if they don't want to see the pictures at their wedding, I will still work on the sneak peek. I will still have my laptop, and I'll go into another room or up in the balcony, whatever the case might be. I will make a sneak peek, I will put it in an online gallery, and then I'll send out the link to them. And then they can, at the end of their wedding, at their after party, or the next morning, whenever they want, they can then look at their pictures. And so they're ready for them. And it's back to people don't really want to wait. They want to see some moments. And it's a nice thing to do to hold people over until the rest of the wedding pictures are complete. And I will say, in the slideshow, I will give some color and some black and white of the different pictures throughout the day. And then in the final wedding photography gallery, I always give a color and a black and white of every single picture that I take so that the couple has an option. And this is a little bit of a topic of dispute or discussion. I don't know if it would be a dispute, maybe. But some photographers adamantly want to say, well, I'm the photographer. I'm going to decide if it's a color picture or a black and white picture. Now, this has to do with digital. If you're shooting on a roll of black and white film, obviously you can't just make it color. I guess you could digitally edit it, but that's really not the same thing. So for digital purposes, everything is photographed in color, and then you can convert it to black and white. Some photographers want to choose, and my philosophy is I have no problem providing a color and a black and white. And then there's no back and forth, and there's not a circumstance where the couple's like, oh, you know what, I really love this picture, but I really would like to see it in color. Is that something I have? And it just becomes more work for the couple. And my priority always is the experience. And so I can give a color and a black and white of every picture, and then the couple doesn't have to ask me for another version, and neither do their family and friends that are enjoying the gallery. And I will say, couples have shared with me, as time goes by, they start enjoying the black and whites more because they kind of start becoming more nostalgic. So what I've realized is that couples don't even know what pictures they're always going to kind of gravitate towards because it changes as time goes by. So that's an important thing to know. So back to the who, what, when, why, where, and how of the sneak peek. What? Well, I kind of went over what the what is. The amount of time it takes, it usually takes me about an hour, maybe a little bit longer to put this sneak peek together. And as I mentioned, I will cull, so that just means picking out the popular images. And I will do a really quick edit, but I'm a firm believer in getting the picture right in camera. And this is difficult to do for a lot of photographers because if you don't get the image right or really close in camera, or even just if you don't get the picture right in camera, you're going to have to spend a lot of time editing and fixing and tweaking. And so you don't have time to do a same day sneak peek. And this is why my philosophy has always been to get the picture right in camera, because I'm bringing in these pictures and I'll bring them into my editing software, but it's a more of a stylization than anything else. I'm not spending lots of time fixing things or photoshopping out this and that. The picture is right and really solid in camera. And that is why I can do this so quickly and have it for couples on their wedding day. And so that's again part of the what. And I'm just looking through my notes here. I kind of talked about, no need to have two photographers on the dance floor. So what is this? The who, what, when, why, where, the who, what. The what is, it's a better use of my time and a better experience for the couple. When am I doing this? I will do this. I think I kind of went over this. I might have got ahead of myself and kind of did all the who, what, when, why, where, and how of the sneak peek because I kind of got excited about it. But again, the when is, I do it during the reception. I do it usually after the dances, speeches, toasts, all that happens, and maybe after the cake cutting. If there's a send-off, I'm obviously not doing the sneak peek after the send-off because that's the end of the evening. So the send-off picture, I'll usually just add one of those in the gallery the next day. And so it's kind of like a bookend, and so the couple has that picture. And I think I kind of went over all the who, what, when, why, where, and how of the sneak peek. I think I got ahead of myself, but I think that I should say I hope that shares a nice BTS behind the scenes of my approach to the reception day, how I approach the different parts of the reception, the different events, what I do, what my second photographer does, a couple tips about dancing, what I do or I don't do with lighting, and then how I use my time wisely as much as I can and work smart and not have two photographers just taking hundreds and hundreds of pictures of dance party when I can use that time in a much more in a wiser fashion. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please let me know what you think. I always appreciate a 5-star review, and recommend this to someone you know that's planning their wedding. And we will catch you soon. And thank you so much for tuning in.